Hey, let's see if this stays on. How you guys doing tonight? I had a really kind of a weird day. I tried to do a live feed at the gallery and it just kept getting screwed up. And I got back home, some other stuff happened today, and I just want to talk about it and see what you guys have to say about it as well. I'm interested. A lot of people are talking about how they hate the rich, but they want to throw love out there all the time. Um, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the politics. Let's talk about what's going on. Um, so we don't like the word rich. We don't like rich folks or that sort of thing. I don't think that's true. But we talk about wanting to love other people all the time. I hear a lot of folks talking about this concept of love, but there's a lot of exploitation that's going on in the world. A lot of it, a lot of the Walmart mentality. And for me, I see a connection, and I'll be interested to see if what you think about this as well. The concept of rich doesn't necessarily mean a dollar. It doesn't necessarily mean exploitation. Imagine this. If you live abundantly, you value everything around you. You value your family. You value the people that help you get to where you need to be. You value your community. You value the people in your community at the highest level, and you don't try to exploit anyone, because exploiting another person is not love. That's not love. In my definition of love, you see someone's entity fully for who they are, and you value them at the highest level, and you want to be generous and grateful for what they bring to the table that can also add to your own abundance and make your home, your family, your community, your country, the world a better place. You don't try to invert it by saying, well, someone else can take your place very quickly. And you look at everyone as objects, and you create a system that has an influx in your home, in your community, in your friend circle, in your country, in the world, that says you're easily disposable. I can find someone who can do what I need done for me in a heartbeat. You don't really matter. Does that make sense? Let's go way back to the idea of what countries really are. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine in Pittsburgh a few nights ago, and we were talking about the whole idea of, like, what is a country in the first place? Like, why are people so focused or weirded out by the idea of having a country? Because globalism is an issue. People are wanting to just have this whole one world thing, and everybody is the same, and it's just this thing. Here's the thing. Countries became countries because you had tribes, which were families, that thought like-mindedly. And because they thought like-mindedly, they created borders of how they and their own communities wanted to exist. They all agreed on what they valued within that specific land and said, this is how within this specific border we all believe we want to live out life, and we believe that this is the right thing to do. Well, there's many different ways that people want to live out their life, and that's freedom oriented. In the ideal sense, it's freedom oriented, because you'll have families that are convicted in their own hearts, in their own consciousness of how they want to live out their lives, and If someone is completely against what they want, well, then there's going to be a border. Hey, sorry. It's just like in relationships, with friendships, individual level. You have a certain constitution that you want to live out in your life. Things that are important to you, things that you value, things that matter to you. And you go out and you find like-minded friends or like-minded people, and they become your quote-unquote tribe. Those are people in your kitchen, right? And then you are able to work together and create a really nice microcosmic community. So everyone's working together and they're valuing each other. Ultimately, ideally, people would be valuing each other at the highest level. You know, like for me, I could imagine if I had my own community, which I'd like to think that I do with all the wonderful people that I know in the world. And even though we're not always living right next to each other, for me, you know, I try to value what they do as much as possible. And I try to create value in what they're doing and really breathe life into what their best conversation is in the world. Okay? To me, that's love. That's love. And you see what grows from it. Because a lot of times people will do everything for $1. They'll sell out their friend, they'll sell out their community for drugs. I've seen that happen. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's mafia run, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because of all the stuff that's going down there right now. And I've been quiet. I'm not going to be quiet anymore about that because I know too much and I'm tired of seeing people getting played. And I tried for the years that I went back to try to diplomatically talk about these things in kindness with people that were definitely on a different level and on a different wavelength because they were so in it. But we're going to talk about that, all right? You have folks that are so feeling in want that they'll sell out their own community for $1. They'll start poisoning their friends with drugs. They'll start selling their own kids and selling the beautiful girls in their own community for prostitution under the radar. They'll do all kinds of different things. They'll get involved with something that seems to be legal, big pharma, and get a really nice cushy job as a pharmaceutical sales rep because it's legal and FDA approved, but it creates so much destruction in the everyday lives of their own community, but they're able to buy a really big house. Is that love? I don't think so. That's selfishness. You'll see people that will allow bigger entities that seem to, they get tuned in to people that have, or entities that have a whole bunch of money, and they'll think, well, I've got to get aligned with that. And they'll do things that cause all kinds of chaos, even in their own world. But they'll always justify it in some way, shape, or form because they're afraid of not being able to survive. And that's the difference between abundance and poverty. And there are people that sell poverty, and there are people that sell abundance. People that sell poverty, they want everyone to always live in survival mode. They want them to be in a fear-based mentality that if they actually live out their consciousness and they stand up for what they know is right, they'll be lost. They'll be destroyed. They won't have anyone or anything around them, and they shouldn't listen to their own gut or believe in their own power of who they were supposed to be in this world to create amazing things in this world. And there are people in this world that believe in abundance. and they believe in the abundance of other people. And they allow other people to truly be themselves in the best light possible. The biggest gift we have in this world is our imagination. All right? And I'm gonna make this practical, I promise, in a minute. The biggest gift we have in this world is our ability to connect with imagination of what can be, what's possible, regardless of the obstacles that seem to be in this world. Something really good. And you know what I think is really funny is that for the idealists, we're the first people to get shut down by everybody else. I mean, I can't tell you every single day. I hear more people react with about what I do or what I imagine can happen or what I hear someone else say that was so great. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. People show up with a response of all kinds of different fear-based ideas rather than go, how can I help make that happen? You know why they do that? Because they've never allowed themselves to do that for themselves. It's sad. It's frustrating. But then people will get on board with absolute global criminals who have been doing terrible things for decades and be totally aligned with what they're down with and thinking that they're like making the world a better place. And I'm going to tell you something personally, okay? Because it's the night before the elections. I know it's really weird because some of you have just met me or some of you have known me from the past and don't understand certain things that I've been involved with under the radar. I've been living certain things under the radar for a long time because you can't always be totally transparent with everybody all the time because they won't get it. And also, unfortunately, people can sometimes react in hurting you, whether they realize it or not, when you try to tell them the truth about what you've personally experienced and what you personally know. Because you aren't a big person. I'm not a big person. I'm not on CNN. I'm not a big Hollywood actor. I don't want it. I saw what happened. I saw what you have to do in order to be like that. I saw the game you had to play. And it's completely anti-freedom. It's completely anti-feminism. It's completely anti-humane. What people have to do in order to get to that popularity thing, you don't even want to know how bad it is. You don't want to know the private situations that those folks have to go through in order to be that puppet mouth that gets a ton of money and a lot of popularity. You don't want to know what they have to go through privately. It's bad. So let's talk about the elections. Let's talk about the people. Let's talk about this stuff. In 2013, when I went home to Pittsburgh is a hotbed for CIA, DARPA. CMU is run by DARPA, CIA. A lot of really weird stuff, a lot of transhumanism stuff, a lot of breaking down humanity, unfortunately, for $1, for the concept of progress. And a lot of people fall into this conversation because they pull a lot of people from international realms that simply just they don't think that they have value in their own country or their own community, and they're like seduced by this idea of money and the idea of education. The idea of education. What are they learning? What are they learning? They're learning to be anti-human, is what's happening. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's really sad. 2013, I go back home, and I didn't expect this to happen, but it did. My neighbors was really good friends with the Clintons, like really good friends with the Clintons. Now, I already had a lot of connections with the Bush family, and unfortunately, that whole thing since 2000, and they're not for the people. They're not. I had to walk away from that and those connections. And I want you all to know that in 2013, I was house sitting for this couple who've been best friends with the Clintons since they were kids. Guess where they go to synagogue? Tree of Life. Guess what the wife, and I'm not going to say their names, guess what their wife told me in 2013? She said to me, well, you know, Hillary's going to win. And I said, wow. And I was not political, like as far as like caring one way or the other, because at the time, I always believed that it's always two sides of the same coin. You know, whether you're a Republican at that time, whether you're a Republican, a Bush fan, or you're a Clinton fan, it's two sides of the same coin. They're best friends with each other, so they either go one language to the same direction or the other language to the same direction. So, you know, I wasn't really involved in caring about voting too much, because I knew they were all criminals. They focus on exploiting a bunch of people all the time. That's how they make their money. That's how they've made their money for decades. Decades. This is why we've been in war. This is why the drug trafficking has gotten out of control. This is why we were in Afghanistan. This is why all these things have happened. It's sad. But she said to me in 2013, it's already a done deal. We've already made it a done deal. Does that sound like freedom to you? Does that sound like we have free elections? It gets worse. I have come to find out that in Pittsburgh, it is a big hub for organ trafficking through Children's Hospital, UPMC, Quest Diagnostics. There's a lot of stem cell research, and they won't tell you where they get all these things. I found out that there is a mafia running a lot of this stuff that does a lot of black market trafficking of organs, kids, all these things. It's all connected. There's a reason why they did that thing recently in Pittsburgh, because they're almost about to get exposed. That's not love, people. That's exploitation. That's money. That's money. That's taking people and doing really bad things. Doing really bad things and manipulating a system. When you also understand that the corporate media is owned by all their big sponsors. Who are their big sponsors? They'll never tell you the truth. They'll never tell you the truth about what's really going on, because when you have corporate sponsors that have their hands dirty in this kind of stuff, they're never going to tell you the truth. They're going to spin everything. And I've had to listen to this for years, privately knowing what I know and hearing from the horse's mouth of these people what they're really up to and what they're really involved with. It's sad. And so many people have been hoodwinked, because there are so many people that really care, that are good people. They're good people, and they want it, and they want to feel like they're good people. right? So as soon as something happens that is shown on television to make someone feel like, oh, isn't this a horrible thing? If you're a good person, you should be against this, right? But you don't understand that sometimes you're being manipulated by the wrong forces in order to go along with something really gnarly that continues making them money and continues allowing exploitation for millions of people around the world. It has nothing to do with color or your culture. Point in fact, look at Libya. I've said this, I don't get a lot of people listening to my videos, and that's okay. It's fine. I get it. It's okay. I've talked about Libya before. If you want to understand the fruit of what certain leaders are involved in and what they're down with, look at Turkey, okay? Look at who was involved with Turkey until 2016. Turkey was a huge center for human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, organ trafficking, and drug trafficking from the east to the west. Who was involved with it? Tony Podesta, who was John Podesta's brother, who John Podesta has been highly involved with the Bush administration and the Clinton administration for decades. He only got shut down last year. Why? And then you've got Libya. Who was involved with Libya and Gaddafi? Who destroyed Gaddafi? In the most horrible sense of the word. And who vilified Gaddafi in Libya and made him seem to be the worst person in the universe? Only because Gaddafi actually had a system for his own country that he really wanted to make sure his people were taken care of. We got lied to. And now in Libya, there truly is, there's absolute slavery happening in Libya. People are being sold on old style human blocks. They're being sold. Humans are being sold in Libya. In real time. Are you seeing that on CNN? Of course you're not. Because then you'd finally see what was really going on with certain people that had been involved in decades with trying to pretend that they're good people, and they're destroying real people all over the world, in all different kinds of countries, and trying to create chaos because they make money off of chaos. They make money off of war. They make money off of trafficking. They exploit people. They exploit poor people all over the globe. They exploit people in our own country. They've destroyed the small town everywhere in the US. They've taken away everyone's ability to live out their own consciousness. If you want to open up your own store and you want to create abundance, there is so much red tape to do that. And then you've got to compete with the likes of Walmart to make that happen. And then you've got farmers who know how to really create abundance and real food. And you've got Monsanto, who, guess what? Monsanto is best friends with the Clintons. Monsanto destroys everything that's actually real food that can actually nourish people and make it healthy. It's just, they've destroyed everything. And now everyone is sick. Everyone has tons of intolerant food problems. And I've been talking about this for years. For those of you who've known me for a really long time, you know I've been talking about this for a long time. It's not that you have an intolerance. You're getting poisoned. And if you're getting poisoned by this food, guess what you also get fed into? Big Pharma. Do you think Big Pharma wants you to eat organic and eat healthy so that you get detoxed? No. They make a whole bunch of other money on giving you a drug that makes you somehow think that you're getting better, but you're getting into poverty. Is that love? Is that humane? No, it's not love. That's exploitation. And then you've got this whole social mentality of saying we need to care about all these folks from different countries that want to come into our country. Okay. Why do people want to come into our country? Because they've been destroying their own country. Why? What was the mentality there? America, now my fifth great uncle was part of the Revolutionary War. And at the time, globally, most people couldn't live out their own consciousness. They were always subjected to what they had to do for the big folks in their country that sometimes weren't so good. They weren't so good. They were taxed out the wazoo. It was constantly in debt. It was like indentured servitude, you know? And the reason why America was so revolutionary was the idea that people were like, fuck that. Hey, you know what? We're gonna create a space of like-minded people that value each other. We believe in letting each other live out each other's conscience in peace and harmony. And we're going to care about each other and make something good happen. I'd like to think that that was true. There's a reason why people want to flock to America. It's the dream of not necessarily making a ton of money in America and going back home and going, sweet, I've made a whole bunch of money in America and I'm going to go back home and hang out and do nothing. It's an idea of, I want to be around like-minded people that it doesn't matter what color, what creed. We want to create a community where there's peace, where we can walk down a street and not get subjugated to harassment, to exploitation, to pain, and we value each other. Isn't that love? I'd like to think that that's love. And if that wasn't quite true, let's make that true. I'd like to think that that will be true. You know? You respect each other. But here's the dark side. There are certain folks that have twisted that conversation and they say, we don't really want to be Americans. We don't, and by that, what I mean is, we don't really want to care about the country that we're going into. We don't like them anyway. We're angry that America did all these different things through deep state and who was behind that for how many years. We want what they have. That's crappy. What I'd like to think in moving forward with all this insanity is that Americans, instead of us hating on each other and hating ourselves, and the one thing that really gets me about Hillary Clinton, and I cannot stand that woman personally, cannot stand her personally because of personally knowing what she's about, personally knowing she's not your friend. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're Democrat. You know what? JFK Jr. was a Democrat. JFK Jr. was a solid dude. JFK Jr. had amazing ideas for everybody. For everybody. And you know, I wish that in 1999 he was able to do what he saw happen, like want to have it happen. And guess who took him down? The Bushes and the Clintons. And then you had all this craziness and this chaos, and you've had all this crap ever since. And JFK Jr. was a Democrat. So it has nothing to do with parties. It has everything to do with individual people and their mentalities. And being honest and really caring about people. For me, what I understand creating a good community and creating a good city or a good state or a good country, whatever, is you start by simply truly being your best self possible. You know, getting yourself in that space of really truly caring about what's really right, and then inspiring through action other folks, not necessarily virtue signaling to people, you know, not that, but just truly just doing kind things and good things and bringing people together in joy, and valuing them at their highest level as best you can, and see how that grows. If you can inspire other countries to do the same, awesome. But to try to say that we're responsible for everybody, everywhere, when so many different countries and so many different cultures, there's different perspectives. Not every country or every culture or every community thinks the same. It's not going to happen. So just let everyone breathe out their fruit. And if someone needs to change their mind, awesome. And if you can, because of what you've brought to the table, and people can see the joy in it, people can see the abundance, they can see the care, they can see the value, awesome. But what I've found that's been going on since JFK Jr. supposedly died, which I think that he's still here. He's been underground. I hope so. Ever since the 90s, there has been a huge push in the Walmart mentality for everyone. Do you know that when I was in high school, I was making $15 an hour working at a little pharmacy and just check people out. And in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, making $15 an hour, I was able to buy all kinds of fun stuff, you know, and do all kinds of fun things. And I mean, rent or whatever. I mean, I didn't even have rent because I was living with my family, but you know, even rent in Pittsburgh back then was like $300 a month for a really big place, like a really nice place. Do you know that now most people are making $12 an hour and their responsibilities are so much higher and the rent is so much higher and the bills, the electricity bills, everything is so much higher, and everyone's in survival mode. Everyone is mentally in survival mode. I'd like to think that things can change. I'd like to think that we'll start valuing each other a little bit more and not falling into this trap of constantly creating a reality that we say, well, if you don't do what I want you to do, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people that are more in poverty mode that will work for even less, and they'll work harder and more. That's kind of a sick mentality to have. That's exploitation. And it's pervasive. And, you know, with this whole movement of people coming into our country, if we're already treating our own citizens that badly, what's going to happen to those migrants? Are they going to get, were they told and marketed a dream that all kinds of amazing things were going to happen if they left their country? And who knows what they left? They may have had it a lot better than what they're going to have when they show up here. And when they show up here, they were going to be trafficked into all kinds of really terrible things. Is that love? That's not love. It's not love. We have to be aware. We have to be aware of these things. We have to be aware that there is a gnarly black market of human trafficking that is sugar-coated to make it seem like we're helping people. But if you look at the leaders that are behind this whole movement of human trafficking, they've been exploiting people for decades. And they want all of us to look like we're the bad guys, that we're fighting for the pieces of pennies. You know, I did a painting back in 2006. It's called The Money Tree. And I've been showing it the last couple months in the gallery. It's a very red, passionate tree that's rootless. You see the roots. And there's a dollar bill in the center of this painting. And there's what were little pennies along all the different roots of this painting. But I started picking off the pennies to make it seem as though there were people that focus more on the pennies, and they want to take the pennies and think that they were getting something for taking the pennies and not looking at the bigger picture of what the painting was really about. And that's what's going on. We're not looking at the bigger picture of what all of this is really creating. People are picking the pennies. What can I get? Little pennies. We're better than that. We're better than that. And it starts with our mentality. You know, like whenever something comes up for me and I can share it with other folks, I want to make sure that they benefit too as best they can. If you know, I'm not looking to try to exploit anybody. I really work hard at doing that. I want to show everyone's best. And look at Backpage. Look at all the different city papers that have gotten shut down in this last year. They were never shut down before. And, you know, the thing is, too, is that I'm not, I guess some people would consider what I'm saying sounds conservative, but I grew up very liberal. But the thing is when you start recognizing that certain things that people are saying that are supposedly liberal end up making you feel really crappy, and you start seeing the underbelly of what's really going on. You start seeing, like in Hollywood or in Los Angeles when I was there, you know, I want to talk about these kind of things. I really wanted to talk about raising up humanity and raising up people and creating beauty and all these things. But you know what I would get in response? It was they wanted me to sexualize myself in a very exploitative way in order to be successful there. They didn't care about the bigger conversation at all. It was all about show us your goods. Because if you're an artist and you're liberal, that's what you should do. That's what's going to get you the exposure and the accolades. Well, that's private to me. That's private to me. I've got this here. And I have this here, my heart. And I also see that in other people. I don't want people to feel exploited or used up. I feel that they've got something better that they have to give to the world. Do you? And who do you align yourself with? And why don't you follow the money of your leaders? Because I can guarantee you, if you follow the line, you follow the money of Hillary Clinton, who I personally have had to unfortunately deal with, there's no feminism there. There's no freedom there. There's no love there. There's no raising up humanity. Have you seen humanity raised up in the last 35 years? Because they've been running stuff for a long time. And everything that you see that's chaos, guess who was behind it? So don't tell me. Don't tell me that that's a love thing. I'm so tired of it. I've lost family from this. I've lost friends. I've had to lose all kinds of different opportunities. That's fine. That's fine. I'm good. But why don't you figure out who's really making money and who's really suffering for literally standing up for what's right? And there's so many amazing friends of mine that are on the same page, really putting amazing work out there and talking about really great stuff and really good change. Don't listen to all that other junk, please. Follow the money, and you'll learn. I probably said too much, but I don't care anymore. I really don't. I mean, it is what it is. This has been a journey. And let's start working together as a community, understanding each other, and lifting each other up. That'd be great. That'd be great. And not get played by people that want to see everyone live a Walmart mentality. That'd be great. And sometimes people focus more on the television thing than someone that they actually know that could use a little love and a little help and a little one-up. So there's that. All right. Peace out. I'm done. I hope you guys have a great night. Wherever you stand on any kind of issue, I don't care. I respect where you come from, but I'm just telling you where I've been and what I've seen. And if you're interested in learning more of what I've experienced and what I've seen, I invite you to my YouTube channel, which maybe 3 or 4 people have watched. And I've talked in depth more about things that have happened in Hollywood that I saw, things that I've seen in a lot of different places, living under the radar. I'm that little person that kind of sees a lot of different things put under the radar. And I navigate it all. All right. I'll see you guys later. Peace. Bye.